Welcome back. So we're still with the national bestseller, Salvation, Black People and Love, written by Bell Hooks. And we're in chapter 4, Valuing Ourselves Rightly. I'll jump back in. No one speaks about the topic of Black people and love without addressing issues of low self-esteem and self-hatred. It is by now common knowledge that the trauma of white supremacy and ongoing racist assault leaves deep psychic wounds. Whether the issues of painful color caste system in Black life or violent actions used by whites against Blacks, denigrating speech, physical aggression, or dehumanizing representation. Every day, all Black people encounter, as does everyone else, some expression of hatred towards Blackness, whether we recognize it or not. Prone to recognize overt expressions of hating Blackness, everyone tends to ignore the constant covert expressions. A denigrating remark made by a seemingly friendly person, a stereotypically racist representation in a magazine or on a billboard, or the myriad times in any given day when a white person takes public transport and stands rather than sit next to a Black person, but sits if the seat opens up next to someone white. In predominantly Black environments, someone may be casually using the N-word or jokingly talking about Black folks as lazy and not wanting to work. All these incidents are expressions of white supremacist thinking and action in daily life, and the hatred of Blackness that it condones and perpetuates. White supremacy is a much more useful term than racism because it allows us both to hold non-Black folks accountable for acts of covert and overt racial aggression, and to look at and challenge the ways Black people internalize white supremacist thought and action. Tragically, most Black folks first experience racist woundings in our homes when our worth is judged at birth by the color of our skin or by the texture of our hair. Prior to militant movements for Black Power, which challenged the denigration of Black bodies using the in-your-face slogan, quote, "Black is beautiful," end quote, a large majority of Black people simply accepted the notions of aesthetic inferiority in relations to whiteness. From the outset of our history in the United States, Black folks aggressively challenged the notion that we were in any way intellectually inferior to white people. Consistently, Black folks and our white allies in struggle called attention to Black intellectual and artistic genius to resist racist stereotypes. White supremacists' insistence that Black people were lazy and unwilling to work hard was not internalized by Black folks because their experiential knowledge countered this assumption. Every day they saw Black folks working from sunup to sundown, sometimes working themselves to death. Even in the face of racism, most vicious institution, slavery, initially on all fronts enslaved Black folks refused to embrace white notions of inferiority. But that changed when white racists doled out privileges and rewards on the basis of skin color. As this happened, it not only divided Black folks from one another, creating a level of mistrust and suspicion that had not been there when all Black folks were similar in skin color, it also laid the foundation for assimilation. So I must interject here and remember we were reading about Equiano, and back in Africa, there were divisions there. It was about tribes and stuff. Maybe she's referencing when we came here and people were similar in complexion, then I would give her that because then we were bounded by the color, the culture of being in the diaspora, whether it's in the Caribbean or in America. Continuing, white supremacist practices of breeding through rape of black women by white masses produced mixed-race offspring whose skin color and facial features were often radically different from the black norm. This led to the formation of a color caste aesthetic. While white races had never deemed black people beautiful before, they had a high aesthetic regard for racially mixed black folks. When the regard took the form of granting privileges and rewards on the basis of skin color, black people began to internalize similar aesthetic values. To understand the color caste system and the impact on black life, we acknowledge the link between patriarchal abuse of black women's bodies and the overvaluation of fair skin. White supremacist formation of a color caste system where lighter skin was valued more than dark skin was the handiwork of white male patriarchs, combining racist and sexist attitudes. Individual white men showed favor towards the lighter-skinned breed of black folks that came into being as a result of their sexual assault of black women's bodies. While white men used the bodies of darker-skinned black women as vessels to act out violent sexual lust without developing emotional bonds and ties, their biological ties to mixed-race black people led to the development of a different and diverse sentiments. Of course, this is a generalization because there were white men who found black women attractive, but we'll move on. Whereas racist, sexist iconography had deemed the darker-skinned black woman ugly and monstrous, a new strand of evaluation came into being to judge the value of fair-skinned females. Aesthetic eroticization of the lighter-skinned black female gave her higher status than that of darker females, creating a sordid context for competition and envy that extended far beyond slavery. How sad it must have been for enslaved black females to find themselves pitted against one another for small favors, just as the dehumanization via objectification of enslaved black women's bodies was spearheaded by patriarchal white males. Enslaved black males who embraced patriarchal thinking. No doubt the notion that women were inferior to men was already ingrained in their psyche before coming to the so-called New World, as women were subordinated to men in most archaic societies globally. She's saying patriarchy oppressing women common to all men, most men over the world. So our brothers came here wanting to oppress us anyway, but they began to value lighter-skinned women over their darker counterparts. Annals of history show that the lighter-skinned black male was often viewed with suspicion. He was seen as a threat to white male power. The lighter-skinned female was seen as more likely to affirm and uphold patriarchal white male power. As the object of white male desire, she was perceived as a creature the white male could subjugate at will. As a strategy of colonization, encouraging enslaved blacks to embrace and uphold white supremacist aesthetics was a masterstroke. Teaching black folks to hate dark skin was one way to ensure that whether white oppressors were present or not, the values of white supremacy would still rule the day. Prominent patriarchal black male leaders who resisted racism on every other front showed a preference for light-skinned women. By their actions, they made the color caste system acceptable. From slavery to the present day, dark-skinned children in black families risk not being as highly valued as lighter counterparts. In my lifetime, the 60s Black Power movement was the only time that the color caste system was militantly challenged. While the slogan "Black is Beautiful" does not seem at all revolutionary today, before radical change in racial hierarchies, it was a taboo to publicly voice militant resistance to white supremacy by denouncing color caste. The 60s and early 70s were the time when black folks working in the mental health field first began to directly speak out about the way in which masses of black people had internalized racist assumptions about the ugliness of our bodies. Of course, right here, I'm proud of the mental health field because people always think we're pointing out pathological things, what's bad, but sometimes, like I'm trying to do here, I'm just trying to bring out the positive, black positivity, black self-love. Continuing. The interventions created by the civil rights struggle and militant black resistance to white supremacy effectively raised consciousness and helped many black folks to divest themselves of white supremacist thinking. However, just as enslaved and newly free black male leaders showed distinct preference for fair skin, the leaders of our militant revolution did the same. They preached love of blackness even as they continued to give preferential treatment to those females who were lighter or in some cases white. In the 60s, Malcolm X's decision, I love Malcolm. In the 60s, Malcolm X's decision to marry a darker-skinned sister, one chosen for him by his mentor and leader, Elijah Muhammad, was meant to set an example to other black men. Undoubtedly, male preference for fair-skinned partners led black mothers to feel that birthing fair-skinned children, especially if they were female, would heighten their chances of surviving and becoming a success. Heterosexual black males' lust for fair-skinned mates created a climate of hostile competition between black females of all skin colors. The negative impact of color caste systems has been most felt by children. Whether they are dark or fair, black children have been subjected to a level of shaming that is psychologically traumatic. Children degrade each other on the basis of skin color because they learn from adults that this is acceptable. Whether it be a light-skinned child lording it over a darker peer, or a group of dark-skinned children mocking and ridiculing a fair-skinned peer, the intended outcome to make that person ashamed of their physical features is the same. It wounds the child's spirit, no matter their skin color. Collectively, black folks already know what must change. If we are to completely eradicate color caste systems, many of those changing, the praising of diverse skin colors, the choices of variously hued black images in visual media, the refusal to equate dark skin with evil, and so on, which were put in place by militant civil rights struggles, were undermined by an unspoken backlash spearheaded by the white-dominated mass media. As we saw more images of black people on television and in movies, color caste overdetermined the nature of our roles. Dark-skinned people were usually cast in negative roles. They were the bad guys or the bad women, whores and prostitutes. The good people were always lighter. Black filmmaker Spike Lee brought national attention to the problem of color caste with his movie School Days. But the movie simply reproduced this skin color hierarchy. It did not challenge it or offer a new vision. More often than not, black controlled mass media have been as invested in the color caste system as the dominant white culture. No matter the color of the filmmaker's skin in movies and videos today, dark-skinned black women are not likely to be cast in any role except that of demonic black bees. In the Scary Movie, a film made by black filmmakers, the black female character is depicted as hateful. Ultimately, she's brutally murdered by a group of white folks. Indeed, media fixation on mixed race beauty has led to the institutionalization in the mass media of a color caste system similar to the one that reigned supreme in the Jim Crow years of racial apartheid. That was heavy. Yes, so I don't agree with every point, and that's the whole point of reading. It's not a cult. You don't have to agree with every point. You can talk back to the author, or the author is not living, and you keep on thinking with your own brain. So the things I agree with her is that the caste system based on complexion, it's here in America, it's there in Jamaica, it's in the Caribbean, even in Africa, people are bleaching their skins. So it's there, and it's not being challenged. Or it is in some places like Africa where it's being banned. You can't use those bleaching creams. They're not sold. So it's just bringing this to our attention, how this is white supremacy. It's like a hydra. It refuses to die. It keeps on giving itself a new head and trying to live in our lives, and we have to constantly eradicate it. So tell me what you think. Thanks so much for listening.